Hey, Robbie.
Hey, Gigi.
How's it going?
I'm good. Happy Friday. We made it.
Happy Friday. We made it. I'm ready for a pina colada or something with this temperature in New York City. It feels like I'm in the tropics. How are you?
95 degrees. I'm sweating indoors. It's rough out here.
It's actually pristine live streaming conditions. It's kind of like they put us on a reality show. Who can not faint from the heat first?
We do our best. Well, we have a pretty exciting show in store, but for folks tuning in for the first time, you want to tell everyone about AWS OnAir?
Oh, definitely. So we are here on AWS OnAir. We are here every Friday talking about new product launches, new ideas. We have not only some special guests coming on today, which we can talk about in a minute, we also have our weekly Jeff Barr segment where he tells us about all of his favorite things, I believe. But I'm looking now and maybe Jeff Barr is not joining us today because I don't see it in my notes. So we'll find out later from our favorite producer who tricked me on Slack that he was coming today. Looks like we don't have Jeff. Normally we do. And normally we get to learn also from Jeff Barr, our favorite.
We'll see what we can do here. We might be able to speak Jeff's appearance into existence, or we'll have to talk about news launches of our own over the course of the week. But for those of you, I think we also want to bring up, for those of you who are asking, well, if I can't join AWS OnAir on Friday, what are my other options? We got a whole week's long worth of shows and the entire lineup spanning startups, security, our show called Lockdown, Under the Hood, where we go deep into various services. And then we've got On-Air Sports. And then on Thursday, we got Step Up Your Game Day. So pretty much anything you're looking to learn about AWS, we have a show for you. My favorite is Friday. We get to hang out with Jeff Barr and talk about service launches. And speaking of service launches, Gigi, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking on Amazon Sage. Can you hear me all right? My audio is coming.
All righty. Well, you never know what's going to happen, folks, live on air. But what we're going to be talking about today is a super exciting launch around the general availability of managed MLflow on Amazon SageMaker. So a really exciting way to start to think about how AWS can help machine learning teams manage the entire ML cycle. Life cycle, rather. I don't want to steal their thunder. We're going to bring in our guests here soon. And we have Gigi back. Your mic sounded awesome. I loved it. It's like Darth Vader.
Oh, gosh. I can only imagine. Looking forward to looking at the recording that you just mentioned. People can come look at.
It was cool. You always say, this is how people know we're not robots. It's live. Anything can happen.
It is definitely live this week. If there were ever a time. I'm just going to keep trying to make myself a better live streamer here and fix one more thing. So
while you do that, before we bring on our guest, I think it's really important. This show is for you, our listeners, our viewers. Shout out to folks tuning in from Canada and Germany who might be tuning in this Friday afternoon. But this show is for you. We work backwards from your needs. Later in the show, we'll ask for your feedback. But while we bring Gigi back, I want to mention that we take feedback seriously. The topics, the nature of the show, even my very background. For those who tuned in, 2 weeks ago? I got absolutely torched for having nothing in my background. And I'm pleased to share. We've got a plant. We've got a 1920s Magnavox radio that projects this like rich trumpet-like sound. We're constantly, working backwards from customer feedback across the entirety of the show. So you ask and we deliver.
Definitely. And Robbie, you are holding down the fort today. So I appreciate it. But I think we're okay now. A few more things got closed and I obviously came unprepared, but it was really just a test to see how you could fare on your own. You passed. And I think we're getting really close to bringing our friends on. So one more time, in case, anyone has joined us since my little glitches that happened, and we can ignore them. We are looking at some really cool stuff today with a PM from the team and a specialist solutions architect that are going to go over that fully managed MLflow on Amazon SageMaker.
Let's do it. Let's bring in our guests.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
Hey,
How's it going?
Good.
glad we sorted out the audio issues out there.
That was all my fault, but we are good. And that's fine. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you guys each introduce yourself and tell us where you're tuning in from?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Kirat Tadaka. I'm a product manager on the SageMaker team. I'm in Seattle. It's also super hot here, unlike what you'd normally expect from Seattle. But as a product manager, what I do is primarily work backwards from customers' needs and help build tools that make them a lot more efficient at building machine learning applications using SageMaker and hopefully delivering a lot of business value. So it's awesome to be here and talk about some of the exciting stuff that we just launched.
Thanks for joining. Ram, do you want to go?
Sure. Thanks, Kirat. Hey everyone, I'm Ram. I'm a ML architect on the SageMaker service team. So I'm lucky to work closely with Kirat and other awesome PMs who kind of bring these products to life. And then I take these features and then evangelize them basically with our customers and users out there that might be interested in MLflow. Managed MLflow coming to SageMaker is one of the most exciting launches recently and something that we wanted to display in the field. So excited to showcase that today and then answer any other questions SageMaker related.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you. Well, should we get into it? Do you guys want to tell us what you launched? I know it came out, I think, last week.
Yeah, it was Wednesday. Wednesday it came out, and yeah, really excited. So what we launched is a fully managed MLflow service on SageMaker. So for those of you who may not know, MLflow is a popular open source tool used to manage the experimentation lifecycle when building machine learning models. And more specifically, what that means is, like, when you're building models, it's super iterative. You're not 100% sure of what model to use. You're not 100% sure of how to train that model. So it requires a lot of trial and error. And when you're going through all of this trial and error, either yourself or with your team, it gets really complicated really quickly to manage all of the experiments that you're doing, and then figuring out which experiment was actually the best one for what you're trying to do. So this tool helps manage all of that for you. Now, one of the challenges that people have when using this is figuring out how to get it to work with everything else that they're doing in AWS. That could be using services like SageMaker, EC2, or other services, and you need to take this open source tool and make it work with everything. So oftentimes, customers spend a lot of time figuring out how to use EC2 or ECS or EKS and get MLflow working on it, and it takes a lot of time and effort. Mm-hmm. So what we've said is, hey, we just want you to focus on the actual machine learning and let us take care of all of the setup and the infrastructure for you. Mm-hmm. So we've created a really easy way for people to use MLflow and have it really nicely integrated with everything else that they're doing in SageMaker when building machine learning models.
So maybe if we break down the problem statement further, like let's take maybe a customer example. Maybe I'm a financial services customer and I'm building a complicated credit model or risk model, some sort of fraud detection. I've got all this data. I'm already using Amazon SageMaker for training jobs and hyperparameter tuning and inferencing, and I'm managing each of these bespoke components on their own. How does MLflow or managed MLflow for Amazon SageMaker bring this all together?
Yeah, great question. So let's say that you're part of this company and you're a data scientist working with the team, and you're now tasked with coming up with this specific credit model. So the first thing that you do is pick an algorithm, and then you train that algorithm using SageMaker training. And then when you train the algorithm, there are some results that you'd see. It could be the accuracy of the model. It could be the loss of the model. It could be a variety of other metrics. Now, you're not necessarily sure whether it's enough to meet your business need. You actually have to test it. You have to train. You have to run the model on real data, get some data back, and then determine whether the model that you built was sufficient for your needs. Now, imagine you're doing this and you don't like the results that you got. So now you need to do it again. And when you do it again, you probably tweak some parameters, right? Maybe change the learning rate, maybe even change the algorithm type. You do it again. Now, at the same time, let's say you and I are on a team and I'm doing the same thing with a different algorithm. Now, how do we manage and compare and collaborate with each other so that we finally end up with the best model? So all of the SageMaker training jobs that we're all running, we can keep track of it all in MLflow. We can all log into MLflow, look at charts and nice visualizations to compare the different performance metrics across each of our training job. Finally, pick one and then say, hey, I think this model is worthy of going to production, so I'm going to register it in a model registry. Now, once it's registered in that model registry in SageMaker, I can really simply go and deploy that model to an endpoint and actually start testing inference on that model. And then if I'm happy with that inference, I can then take it and deploy it to production using SageMaker, integrating it with CI/CD pipelines and monitoring that model in production, and then have the entire lifecycle starting from my idea, which was, hey, I want to build a credit model, to actually having that model working in production and serving my end users as that company.
Got it. Well, that sounds like we need to see it to believe it. And I think it might be time to go into a little bit of a live demo. I've already proved that we only do live here because I was glitching the whole first 5 minutes. So it's your turn to prove that it's live, Rom, and not glitch, but show us how great your walkthrough is. It does look like awesome. It's up. We are good. Rom, do you want to walk us through? And we're just going to pester you with questions if you don't mind.
Of course. Keep it super informal. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. So I know there's a lot of questions that might pop up as we walk through this process. But once we get here, right, where we want to land at, and the crux of where we'll start this problem is the SageMaker console itself. SageMaker, as Kirit alluded to, is a bit of a managed ML offering across different parts of the ML lifecycle. There's not really only one part to machine learning. There's data preparation, there's training, there's MLOps, as Kirit alluded to, and then inference. And SageMaker kind of encapsulates all of that into one service. For today, what we'll focus on is the MLOps sides of things. So that's really operationalizing your machine learning workloads into production. And for that, MLflow is a very handy tool that we've made managed for this. So where you can get started or where you can work with this tool is, if you go to the UI here, you'll see there's Studio, which is the SageMaker IDE for machine learning development. And you can think of this as you can bring your normal Jupyter Labs, Python scripts, any kind of data science related workloads, you can bring into this environment and execute. And there's also access, right, to all the different SageMaker features that are part of our MLOps portfolio as well. So I've pre-created a domain here and a user. This is essentially your working environment. You can create your own setup here within the admin configurations. But if we go into the Studio page, you will be getting taken to this UI right here for SageMaker Studio. And as I was alluding to, there's a number of different features here that are both SageMaker and non-SageMaker related, where you can work with the MLOps toolings and features, and then also different development environments that you can get started in.
Oh, awesome.
For our purpose, right, there will be two main applications that we'll take a look at today. One is Jupyter Lab. This is what many data scientists are normally familiar with. This is where you can execute kind of your scikit-learn, PyTorch. Nowadays, it's all LLMs, that type of code, locally with the compute environment that SageMaker provides. And then the next part for us is the managed MLflow offering here. And with MLflow, right, at its crux, there is a tracking server. And what this tracking server essentially is all these different experiments and kind of training jobs and runs that you have. What MLflow will provide by this tracking server is kind of that metadata and storage for you, along with the UI to kind of track and compare these different runs. And what SageMaker has done on this managed offering is made it a little simple, where you can click create right here. You'll see I have some existing servers here just for the purpose of time. But if you click the create button right here, you can say tracking server demo, and then you can pick an S3 path of yours that you want to essentially enter. And with this come the different tracking server sizes, as Kirit was alluding to, depending on your use case and what you might be dealing with. But once this tracking server is created, you basically have the bare bones or kind of the plumbing for you to get started with your ML experimentation itself.
Wow. Because before this, when I recreated these steps earlier today, it was like you said, half a minute, 2 clicks, and you've created your tracking servers. Prior to this, I saw there was a tutorial. You can containerize MLflow, run it in Fargate, put a load balancer. And now you've got the service. And now we're once again abstracting away that undifferentiated heavy lifting for managing the infrastructure so you can focus on your ML lifecycle.
Exactly. As a data scientist, I came from a data science background. I was not an ML engineer. I did not want to think about containers, and I did not want to think about the runtime environment or things of that sort, because that was taking away from my core work, which is I have my model, I want to train it, I want to see which model is the most performant in my runs. So what we do here is we really want to take out that hardware and container level layer for you, as you might have had to do so traditionally. And you can simply create the server and then get right to work in terms of your data science scripts. So.
Got it. And for those of us who, didn't look at the previous version, I think I glitched. For those of us that didn't look at the previous version, what are we building on the back end that makes this managed? And does the customer have, if I open my AWS account, can I see those still and they're running, but I just don't have to take care of them? Or are you guys totally taking care of everything? I can't even see it. It just exists as a single line on my bill that we're using these tracking servers.
We fully take care of that for you. So on your bill, you see one line, MLflow. You don't have to worry about all of the things that went in the back end to make that possible. So we fully integrated with SageMaker and AWS services that you'd need for any managed service. Like MLflow is integrated with IAM, it's integrated with EventBridge, it's integrated with CloudTrail, integrated with SageMaker's model registry, notebooks, training, inference. So all of that we've done for you. So from your standpoint, it's one API, make a call, create your server, you're ready. And we give customers the ability to store all of their sensitive data in their own accounts. So we don't take any of your data, like your models and everything, they're all in your account owned by you. And we just interface with it through the managed service. So you get the benefit of managed services, but you still have the safety and security around your sensitive data.
And exactly as Kirit said, if I click on one of these tracking servers, you'll see the IAM role configuration for your studio user. And then also different things such as the S3 bucket that you essentially have your model data or artifacts pushed to. So all of this is like available and accessible for you. So think of it as very similar to any security concepts on the cloud. We make that very easy to set up via this create button, essentially, where you can control where you have your data access. You can control which buckets have what type of models, and then you can essentially go from there in terms of all this.
So now I've got to ask the obvious question. We have this tracking server, managed infrastructure, part of MLflow.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need a tracking server? What does it do?
I'm glad you asked.
Completely fair question, right? So this tracking server, right, at the end of the day, we need a place to catalog our experiments. And what we do with this tracking server is we give a central, you can almost think of a repository of sorts, where you have your different runs. MLflow, a common term that you'll hear is a run, which is your different kind of training jobs or iterations that you might have. And then there's also a model registry that will be present within this tracking server. And that's where you can catalog your models. So the different models that you've trained, you might have one that you want for your development environment, then one for a production environment. So this tracking server is a central kind of metadata source that you can almost think of. And the UI, which I'll reflect, which I'll bring up after, is probably going to give a better eyes to everything I'm saying. But think of it as a central store for all your different experiments and model registry. And that's why you have different sizes too, depending on the experiment scale that you have, that you'll select on.
Got it. That was necessary and enlightening. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think what we can do is, why don't we go to our Jupyter Lab environment? There will be some code there for those who are interested in that, but then we'll put all of this to a visual with the UI so that I'm not just rambling on or saying a bunch of terms that don't actually exist. But right here, if we come here, great questions, by the way, feel free to keep asking them. Right here, we have our Jupyter Lab environment. And this is, like I said, a compute space within your studio notebook where you can have whatever necessary hardware behind it. You have your traditional JLab environment, which I've already created here. And here, these notebooks are all available on GitHub, so we'll share this resource afterwards for those who want to try these out directly. We'll see how we can work with this new managed MLflow offering on SageMaker. Everything here will be executed in Python within this kernel. And what we'll do is we'll essentially, just like you would locally or in a traditional manner, install MLflow and then also install the open source SageMaker MLflow package. And keep in mind, you're not actually doing anything with this package. This just being installed in the runtime environment will by default allow for you to catalog experiments and different models into the SageMaker MLOps services and features as well. And we'll take a look at that in the UI as we walk through this. Here, what I'm doing is I'm working with the SageMaker and Boto 3 SDKs. These are just Python clients to be able to work with the SageMaker service. And then I also have MLflow imported after I've installed it. And if you notice, I actually grabbed something here known as a tracking server ARN. So after you've created your tracking server here in the UI in MLflow, you can grab that specific ARN that you're working with and tell the SageMaker SDK basically, hey, this is where we're going to be cataloging all my different experiments and my different models. This is my resource essentially.
Got it. And just to make sure we're asking the brilliant questions here. An ARN is an Amazon resource number.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Everything in AWS, when you're using it in this kind of format, some way or another is providing an ARN, so that way you can link it to maybe something else. Is it a simplified way to put that? Thank you.
Exactly. Just think of it as a tag for like your resource.
Got it.
Awesome. Yep. So I specified that here, and I've set up this environment. And the key thing is everything we were capturing data-wise is pushed to S3. And then here, if you come here, our data scientists will actually see some very data science common code. We're actually pulling down an iris data set here. What we're going to do is we'll pull down an iris data set. We'll have a scikit-learn classification type use case, and then we'll build out some code for that. I grab that data, I push it to S3. Like I said, that's a bit of the data store for everything SageMaker related. And I'll upload that data. And then for training, it's a very simple process, and I'll get to that script in a second. But I essentially say I have a scikit-learn model. This is exactly what I'm dealing with. I'm going to pass in a training script that would mimic my local MLflow code with my scikit-learn model. And then I'm going to pass in any hyperparameters. And then most importantly, I'll also pass in this environment variable, which is essentially saying, this is the tracking server ARN. So what I'm going to be telling my script or my training job that I'm conducting within SageMaker is, this applies to this exact tracking server. So any runs or experiments I want pushed there, and also to SageMaker's MLOps features by default. And if you see in this training script, I'm essentially installing just MLflow and the SageMaker MLflow plugin. Once again, there's no new APIs or new calls or anything with the SageMaker MLflow SDK right here. This is merely saying, make sure you push these runs and catalog them to the SageMaker service by default as well. And if I come in here, you'll see this is very similar to just any local MLflow code that you might be able to grab. I grab my data set, I'm just preparing it. I grab the tracking server ARN, and I'm saying this is the URI that I want to push my experiments to. And then if you notice, this is just an MLflow API call, just like any other you would locally. I'm going to set this up and say, let's log these experiments. This is what I'm dealing with. I've grabbed my data set, and now I'm going to train this classification model on top of it. And the key part here is, after that, we will want to grab this model data. Because like Kirit alluded to earlier, let's not forget the overall ML journey. It doesn't just start with preparing the data, training, and then we're good. We've tracked it in MLflow. Realistically, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just going to say, so you guys say I don't need to be an expert. Mm-hmm. This is feeling a little experty. So if you break this down a little bit less in the data science terminology, right? This is a notebook that it comes with all of this information in here. Everything's annotated and tagged in different ways. So if someone in our audience, was trying to give this a go, they could use this as, a first step, or is this a second or third step into the learning process?
So the steps that you want is the tracking server ARN, which is, like I said, you just need an S3 path for where you dump your data, and then the name of your tracking server. Once you have that, like I said, the idea is you can run this notebook exactly end to end. The only thing you're going to have to change is your tracking server ARN right here. So I could literally change this to enter tracking server ARN, and I think that's what it says in our GitHub that I was running this beforehand. But you can enter ARN here. And for the more advanced users, if you have a model that you directly want to plug in, just plug your code in there. If not, and you're new to this, just run this end to end, and you'll understand how the flow works essentially.
Okay, that's really helpful. Anyone in the audience, if you do have questions, we are watching the chat and we want to see your questions too. I love asking questions, but I love it more when I get to ask your questions and not my own.
Yeah, no problem at all. And just on that point, like I was saying, all we're doing here is after we've cataloged our run, which is essentially our training job, we also just want to grab our model artifacts. And to simplify this, just think of model artifacts as your model data. After you've trained or fine-tuned a model, you need a way to capture that model's metadata, right? So what we do is we capture that model data, which for scikit-learn is a joblet, but for more advanced users in PyTorch, it might be a .pth. In our LLM worlds, it might be safe tensors, anything you're doing. So this can be any type of model. It can be an LLM, it can be a traditional ML model. All we're doing is grabbing that model data, and we're going to say, we want to register this within MLflow underneath this name right here, which is SageMaker job experiment model. And after this training job kicks off and runs, right, this is just a SageMaker training job that will execute. That training script gets executed. And we can access this in 2 different contact points by default, just by that installation with the SageMaker MLflow package. We can access it first in the Studio MLOps features and then the MLflow UI. So let's first go to Studio, and we'll see if we go to models right here, I named that SageMaker job experimental, right, in my training script. If you see here, I will have some code saying, can you track this model or register it? And once again, this is just grabbing the model's information or data, you can think of it of that sort, and capturing that and then tracking the version. So every time I've run this, sorry, shift there. Every time I've run this, it's been 6 times by now. Each time this model data by default, without me writing any code, will get pushed into this version tracking right here for these different versions. So this model group has been created by default for me, and I can see the different model versions I have available. And in a real world use case, right, the reason this is valuable is, let's say I've conducted 100 runs across different sets of data with my model. I want to see what the most efficient or accurate model is according to what I've tracked. So what that plugin does is, by default, it will catalog all of these models in a single repo or place for you to look at. And the same applies within this experiments tab right here. If you go to SageMaker experiments, this will lead us then to the MLflow UI itself. So right now we're looking at the different SageMaker MLOps features that we automatically account for. But if you're a traditional MLflow user and you want to just stick to that UI, you can also go to experiments, hit this default tab, or also hit this MLflow tab, and you'll see a UI has automatically been created for you. Okay. And this is a different tracking server than before. Sorry, I think there was a question.
Got it. I mean, we only have about 2 minutes left, so I do want to make sure you're hitting everything that you want to show.
Sure. Yeah.
I do have a question also though. When you show all the versions and how many times you've run them, where does the comparison value come in the UI? Is there, if you were to run different models, is it showing some sort of quantitative way to see?
Yeah, so exactly right here, this is the MLflow UI. So just to kind of capture the other part of it, if we click and open that MLflow UI from the tracking server, we'll see these scores are automatically captured for us. So this is just one run, but let's say that you have 7 or 8 different runs, right? You can plot all these values next to each other. So you have a very quantitative and a simplified way of saying model 1 has an accuracy score of 0.25, model 2 has an accuracy score of 0.7, and then model 3 has the best score of a 0.8. So these numbers by default, they're all cataloged for you, and then you can plot them yourself and see these model metrics and different artifacts that you essentially have.
So this is for how we collect data associated with training. In the 1 minute or so we have left, does this connect to other upstream services in SageMaker, like deploying inference endpoints?
Exactly. So that model data exactly that we talked about, that we registered, right? You can take that directly. That was that model version that we saw. We can grab that source path for the model data. If you see here, I'm just grabbing that tracking server ARN and that registered model that I pushed. I'm going to grab that model data. And then if you see here, this is all SageMaker inference constructs. So the SDK might seem a little abstract. I'm just going to say my input and output looks like this. I want to create a SageMaker endpoint. This is what my input and output looks like. This is where my MLflow model that I just pushed lives. Create a SageMaker endpoint for me and then run inference. And it's that simple of a step because there's tight integration there. And if we go to deployments and click endpoints, you'll see that I have a live scikit-learn endpoint that's already been created for me, just by simply pointing towards that MLflow model data from the latest model we trained.
Wow. Interesting is an understatement. Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you so much for showing us this. This was so helpful.
No, of course. And any questions offline, feel free to share. And like I said, all this is accessible by GitHub for those who didn't have time for the entirety of it.
Yeah, we aren't losing you guys entirely. There's still someone in the chat answering any questions about this. So if you've been listening to the show, and you come up with a question in the next couple minutes, in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, and 15, we're still here and we can still answer your question. So this is not the end of learning about this, but we do want to say thank you to you guys for showing us this demo, and congrats on the launch. I'm sure you're going to get some much needed sleep this weekend. I feel your pain, and I am really glad you guys joined us. Robbie, any final questions?
I think it's just another great example of fully integrated MLOps on AWS, fully managed, but connected to all the services developers already know and love on SageMaker. So great example, great demo, Ram, and thank you both for joining us. This is awesome.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later. I just love this because, I think it was in April, maybe, we had a guest on who went over a totally different feature set, but it was another example of we're trying to give, our users on AWS the opportunity to try out different algorithms in an easier way, right? There's so much coming out. We just had a bunch of announcements this week, actually, with new types of algorithms that are available on AWS in different formats. But the big question is, like, how do you make this, manageable to someone that does want to test them, does want to see how well they work? And this is just having this as a managed service, I think, makes so much sense.
I agree. And if you look at the launch blog for the service here, they really call out that this is solving the problem of managing not only the vast teams, but all of the different models being trained for the experimentation, which begs the question, what is the best way to experiment, and how are we going to make developers' lives as seamless as possible? I think this is a great example that speaks to this. And I'd love to ask all the folks in the chat here and tuning in live all across the globe, when you think about experimenting on machine learning on AWS, what are some of your questions, or what are you building? Where do you need help? That'll help shape not only this show, but of course, future shows.
You know what else helps shape future shows though, Robbie?
You tell me.
You're not going to answer. The survey, our favorite thing in the world, because Nick, our producer, actually spends his weekends reading your answers and doesn't socialize. So please give us more content for Nick to read on the weekends. And also get a $10 credit. Do you know how many of the first responders get the credit, Robbie?
I'm not going to look at the screen, but I think it's 50.
It's 50, which is up. It's up from previous week.
So if you want Nick to spend his entire weekend reading fan mail, please fill out the survey.
Although it doesn't have to be fan mail, it can be really strongly worded feedback. We also like that. We'll take anything. We just want to know how we can make this show better for you guys and keep you coming back for more.
Couldn't agree more.
Although Nick does prefer fan mail, that does help his ego coming into Monday morning. So until then, though, we do have, I think, our dear friend Todd joining us for a bit. Don't you think?
Here we have our field reporter, Todd Fortier, talking about some of the work we've been doing with one of our partners. And maybe we'll let Todd take it away and share a little bit more.
Let's let him take it away.
Welcome back to AWS On Air. What an awesome first segment. I am now joined by the great people from Nvidia. But first, I'm Todd Fortier. I'll be the host for this segment. And let's go ahead and introduce our guest here. Eliuth, why don't you go ahead and start and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump to Jihan.
Thank you, Todd. So my name is Eliuth Triana. I work on the Nvidia Amazon team. I have been helping many enterprises and AI startups in their Gen AI journey. So we will see how the journey is and how we can help you to go through that journey. With us today is Jihan Liu. Jihan is our expert in inference or generation, how Jensen call it. So we will learn how we can optimize inference, how we can optimize generation in our Gen AI use case. So let's go into it.
Cool. Welcome to the show. And NVIDIA NIMs is something I've talked about a few times on this show. And so I'm excited to kind of host this and see it in action. Eliuth, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what NVIDIA NIMs is and what we're going to see today?
Yep, absolutely, Todd. So NVIDIA NIMs, we have been working for a long time in making sure that the customers have a runtime environment that can be like a state-of-the-art performance. So wherever you are in the Gen AI use case, we want to help you to make sure that the performance for that specific model on that specific GPU just cover the best optimization that we have been doing. So the NIMs are this specific tool that you can take, you can deploy your inference over there, and you will make sure that you have the best performance for your GenAI use case inference.
Okay, I think it is. So NIMS is a product developed by NVIDIA, and that runs inside of AWS?
Correct. That runs inside of AWS. So you will take the NIMs, you will run it on AWS, you will put your inference over there, and you will get the best performance for your inference use case.
Okay, you're using a term that we hear often when we talk about Gen AI. You're saying inference. Can you help some of our audience members understand what is inference and how does that relate to the other aspects of Gen AI?
Absolutely, and I would like to show you some journey. So when you are in the Gen AI journey, when you are deploying a Gen AI use case, there are a few steps that you can run, and if you can help me talk with the slide. So
yeah,
there
sure.
are a few steps.
I understand you're going to share your screen, so let's bring that up on screen so our audience can see that as well.
Thank you, Todd. So when you are in your Gen AI use case, there are a few steps that you may need to take in order to take a use case from ideation into production. So there are a few steps. Let's start with the first step, that is data acquisition. So it's how you make sure that the data you have may be able to work on a specific model, on a specific Gen AI model. So that's the first step, is how you validate the data, how you get a tokens out of that data. So that calls data acquisition and data curation. Then you will just take that data and work with a model. So it could be a model that you bring from open source, a model that you build yourself, one of the models that are available out there, a model like, let's say, Llama 3. So you take the data that you curated before, how you use pre-train that model with your specific information, how you get the expertise of your enterprise to that specific model. That is called pre-training or model customization. Then you will just attach information, live information, to that model. That is called information retrieval. Is the fact that the model can respond to prompts with real-time information, and that is an information retrieval. And then there is the prompt. The prompt, when the customer or the user just got to the model and may do a request, like a prompt. That is called a process called inference, or generation, as we call it. This is the process that the model just come from a prompt, from a question that you ask to the model, how he produce or generate the answer and give it to the user. That is called inference or called generation. And then in the journey, what you can do is just deliver a thing called guardrails. Those guardrails is just to make sure that the model respond in the right set of guardrails, and we don't want the model to talk about something we don't want to talk. So that is specific the guardrails are. So this is the journey. This is the journey that you go through when you are producing a use case. Data prep, training and customization, and deployment, where comes inference and going into production. So based on these steps, and if you can, let me just move one more. NVIDIA and AWS, we have been working really hard to make sure that the AWS customers can get the best out of Gen AI use cases in the entire journey. So in the journey, we have been preparing and making some tools available for you to optimize the journey, to optimize the performance. So you can get the best performance in data processing using some tools, like in this case, NIM Curator is one of the tools that we have available for you to make sure you get the best performance in data processing. Or in training and customization, there are certain tools that we have produced, AWS and NVIDIA, to make sure you can take those tools for you and make it the best for you training your model or retrain your model or evaluate your model. And these are NIMO Customizer, NIMO Evaluator, NIMO Retriever. And then for production, when you are taking that model into production or that journey into production, there is the inference and the production environment. So for that inference, we will be talking about the NIMs, and this is the story that we want to tell you today.
Cool. So no matter where you are, what I heard you say there is, so no matter where you are in the process of your Gen AI use case, NVIDIA has a solution that you can use to help speed that up. And I understand, Zhihong, you're going to show kind of actually behind the scenes how that actually works. So let's jump over to you and bring your screen on and let us peek behind the scenes and see it in action.
Sure, sounds cool. I actually have a demo that's to answer your question, what inference means. So in this page, as you're seeing, this is the NVIDIA playground where you can discover all kinds of different foundation models.
It looks like we lost Eliuth. Eliuth, our audience can't see. Oh, there you go. He's back. He's back. Okay, John, sorry to interrupt you. I just didn't want to make sure you missed out on anything. Go ahead, John.
Okay, sounds cool. So as I was saying, in this page, you can choose to explore with different kind of foundation models that's provided by NVIDIA, and you can play around with different kind of use cases. For example, on the left-hand side, we have reasoning, we have vision, we have visual design, and all kinds of different use cases. And for today's demo, I'm going to use the chat Llama 370B instruct model specifically. So this is a super powerful model that gives you really interactive chat experience that seems like you are talking with the assistant directly. So in this page, as you can see, we actually prepared some example prompt for you to show you what kind of questions you can ask the model about. So for today's demo, I think I will start with what can I see at NVIDIA's GTC conference.
So I want to touch on something you just said here, because I think it's a really important thing. There are different models that are better at different things. There's no one size fits all model. The state of Gen AI right now is multiple models are being trained to do specific tasks. And what I just saw you walk through is you have categories for different models, and you've logically split those up so you can make sure you're selecting the right model. And in this model, we're going to do a chatbot kind of experience using the Llama instruct model. Yeah, I think that's really important to know that model selection is important, and you guys provide a nice, easy way to do that. Yeah, let's get into it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. That's actually a very, very good point. So we provide a tons of different model selections, so that based on your use case and based on your SLAs, you can choose models of different functionality and also different size that best fits your use cases. But for this one, the Llama 370B I'm demonstrating here is actually optimized for chat. And it's also a reasonable large model that can have very great functionality to help you answer some of the questions. So in this case, as you can see, even though we just ask a very short question, it's actually able to provide a super long answers for you. It actually summarize up to 8 points of what you can be expecting from GTC conference. And of course, if you find this is too long, you can continue to be asking to make it really interactive. For example, I'm going to say, this is too long. Can you help me to summarize up to 3 points? Points only. Okay, and after you put in point, just as you are interacting with the real person, it's going to think a little bit and soon enough provide you the answer. And as you can see, it provides all the highlight for you. For example, you can be expecting technical sessions and keynotes. And of course, it has exhibition floor and different kind of demos. And last but not least, it's a great networking opportunity to let you immerse in the AI world, to really connect with different experts and others in this realm.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I just saw something that I think is really important. When we talk about context-aware interaction. So you said this is too long, and the model understood what you meant by this. You didn't have to re-instruct it in any way. You said this is too long, make it shorter, and it referred back to its previous response and knew exactly what you're talking about. So I think that's a pretty cool concept. Like, context is important. You're just chatting with the model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly. Cool. I think that's also another beauty of the Gen AI models today. So, because this kind of model are optimized for chat, so it will bear in mind what you're already asking. So you don't have to provide the context all over again. You already have it encapsulated, and all you have to do is just as you are talking with a real person, you don't have to keep reminding it again and again.
Yeah, very cool, Zhihong. So we've got just a few minutes left. I want to make sure we get to some of the key aspects of this demo. What else you got for us?
Yeah, sure. So this is the thing you can do with the Gen AI. But of course, the Gen of today's demo is going to show you how you can easily do it on AWS environment. So in the next step, I'm going to switch to this Docker page. As you can see, we will link the official documentation of NIM deployment. And since we will be using AWS environment, we are going to start an EC2 instance that meet all of the requirement that's listed here, and also to show you how easy it is to set it up and have it running in your own environment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's see that.
With that, I already have the instance running, but if this is the you are starting from scratch and you want to start a new instance, you can click this Launch Instance tab, and in here you can specify your EC2 instance name. And of course, in the armies, we are going to recommend using Nvidia Deep Learning Army. So this is an army that's provided by Nvidia, and it's being verified to make sure it's meeting all the requirements you need to run GPU applications.
Yeah, so you're saying AMI, so another AMI, we're talking about Elastic Cloud Compute, a service on AWS, and AMI is a machine image that is pre-configured that you can launch into the EC2. So it's already preloaded with the NVIDIA software. Pretty cool. So you've selected the NVIDIA GPU optimized AMI, and you're just a few buttons and you're going to launch this.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So once you select this, you can also play around with the instance size. For today's demo, I'm actually using the G5 instance. This is equipped with the NVIDIA A10G GPU, which is an MP architecture that have very great price efficiency. That's powerful enough to help you host moderate Gen AI workload. And in the following, you can specify your key pair, and if you don't have one, you can create a new key pair. But as for me, I already have everything set up for you so that you don't have to wait for the actual launch time. So
Right.
I'm going to switch to my terminal so that I can start connecting to the instance.
You've launched a EC2 instance container with the NVIDIA software already loaded onto it. And then there's a container running within that EC2 instance. What's next from here? You want to show us how that container is operating?
Yeah, sure. So once you're logging into the EC2 instance, the next step is to get a NGC API key. So if you don't have one already, you can click this link to apply one. But basically, I already run this export the API key step here. So the next step is simply to log into Docker. So this is the command you should be seeing after you successfully log into Docker. As for the next step, you are going to specify which model you are going to deploy and which version are you going to choose. So in my case, I'm going to use the Llama 3 8B instruct, and that was version number 1.0. And of course, you can also specify a local cache directory so that you don't have to re-download the artifact over again and again. Okay, and if you don't have one, make sure you run this command so that you can create it. And for the next step, I'm just going to run the Docker run command so that you can see the container running live.
I love demos and documentation where the code, all I have to do is copy and paste the code. So that's really cool. So you've logged in, you've set a cache directory so we don't have to load assets every time, and it's cached locally onto the EC2 instance. And now, let's see, what do we got here? We're running Docker run.
Actually, I have a command that's ready. So let's just
and that's the value out of names. So the expectation and what we expect is that every single developer out there can take a NIM, can use it on AWS in a very easy and simple way. So that's the objective for today's.
Here we go. Now we've seen some action here. We've got Tensor RT. It's initiating. We see some output here.
Yeah, so basically, as you can see, after you launch the container, it will launch a bunch of algorithms to be running, and it will detect what kind of compatible profiles you can be running. And of course, the most optimized and always recommended one is you should be looking for the keyword TensorRT-LM, which is essentially the NVIDIA optimized engine that can help you to run your large language model in its optimal performance.
Okay, here we go. And what's our output?
With that, you can see everything is running, and here is some reference API you can be using to help you run different commands. You can run health check and also use the check API to really chat with the large language model. Or if you just want to send a one-time request. It can be a completion request. And here is some of the example we will be using to test as well.
Okay, so once the container's up, there's all kinds of things we can do through your API documentation. And so presumably we could take this, expose it through some endpoint, and now customers can start to interact with our model through the NVIDIA platform. That's really cool. If our audience wanted to learn more about that API, where would they go and how would they get started with what you just showed?
Yeah, exactly. So this is a great getting start page you are seeing here. So for example, I can easily run the curve models to get the model details. And of course, if you want to run the completion I just talked about or chat experience request, you can see we provide both very simple curl command option, as well as a command using OpenAI Python API, which is kind of the industry standard right now. And of course, if you want to do more, there's also parameter efficient fine tuning, which we can do to really customize the model to make sure it's fitting your own requirements.
So lots of different ways to experiment with this platform and lots of different things you can do, different models. And so, hey, thanks for coming on, Eliuth and Jahong. Eliuth, thanks for a great description on the process that customers go through to launch a Gen AI use case. And Jahong, I really like this demo. You launched it. It was just a couple clicks to the EC2 instance. All the API and documentation is available to you. And I like that you can copy and paste it right into the console and see it working in action. So great demo. And thanks for coming on. It was nice meeting you guys.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Todd, and thank you, NVIDIA team. That was pretty cool, right, Gigi?
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Todd. Wow. He does a fantastic job every time.
And his background. I
One
mean,
more.
I only have a plant and a radio next to me because of Todd, week by week.
You
I'll
have
get
space for a sign, right?
I want the on-air sign, but everybody will know that I stole it from Todd. It's not unique.
That's okay. It's okay to look up to others. It's okay. No one judges it. Anyways, I really liked that. I hope our audience really liked that. It's
Tell us
nice
what you
to have the consistent, I think, NVIDIA content because you learn so much. I also think that people can tell us how much they liked it in the survey.
I like it. We've had a nice breadth of content today. We talked about the ML lifecycle to start, and then we talked about containerizing large language models and then running them on EC2 instances with Docker, brought to you by NVIDIA NIM. So a nice breadth of content, but all along the broader theme of making machine learning and generative AI more accessible than ever, which I love. And if you love it too, sounds like you can get AWS credits.
Put it in the survey and you'll get AWS credits. I love the democratization, that took me a second, of generative AI and testing of it and getting more comfortable with it. I think there's so many people that are excited about it, and AWS, gives the tools to just give it a go, see where it takes you, and then at least those conversations can be even more interesting with a little bit of real hands-on experience in the console.
Exactly. And before we bring on our fantastic producer, I want to make sure we've covered all of our questions here in the chat. Question here from Marcel. Do you have multiple streams or do you just fake the chat? Pretty sure the chat's real. You ask a question, we'll put the answer in the chat. Code, text, you name it.
The chat is definitely real. This live stream is definitely live. I am not a robot. This is not fake. This is reality. And when I go get a pina colada later, that'll be real too. But in the meantime, in the way of me getting that pina colada is our dear friend Nick and our favorite producer, also Nick. 2 people, the same person, 2 jobs.
2 for 1, right?
He's also paid to be our friend. And there you are.
There we go.
You appeared.
Yeah,
So,
I was going to see how long it took you to realize that I was on the screen. Just let you keep going there.
I could talk all day to myself, so you're good either way.
Yeah, the chat is real. It's actually myself and our other producer, Debbie, in the chat. I want to clarify, we answer all the questions that we can. Sometimes y'all stump us, but we will find those answers if you just give us a second. But yes, we love it when everybody asks questions. I tell you what, though, you guys are talking about how hot it is. I'm in Nashville right now. I think it's supposed to be in the 90s for the next week. It's it's gonna be this hot. I want to be at the beach. Want to, finish up this show, have a cheeseburger in paradise, sip on that frozen concoction, help me hang on to my sanity. You know what I mean?
I need to exit the state of New York for a cheeseburger in paradise reference.
You know,
to make
I don't think there's ever a bad time for a cheeseburger in paradise reference. I was just walking my dog, blew out my flip flop, stepped on a pop top, all that fun stuff, you know.
Really with it today with the rhymes and the lyrics. It's
There
impressive.
we go. Hopefully somebody knows what I'm talking about in the audience. But
In the chat, if you
Tell
do.
us. Yeah.
speaking of awesome references, guys, do you know what we've got coming up in 2 weeks?
Oh, I
2
know.
short weeks.
Robbie, do you know?
I know, it's on my calendar.
It's
snap.
actually, do you have a countdown above your bed for every morning? You're like, how many more days?
Ooh, I should.
Only 5.
Can
No,
go right there.
Yeah,
That could be your next decoration, Todd.
we'll go
Or
and wait for
Robbie.
you.
Oh my God, I really do need.
That was
That
the
was
best.
embarrassing. I was looking at Todd
Freudian
for
slip.
like
The
18
fact
minutes
that you confused the two of me, this made my day.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, it's a real compliment.
Yeah, that's huge.
100%. Well, your backgrounds are like the same amount of coolness, so I just get you guys confused, you know. But speaking of that, though, 2 weeks, folks, start your calendars. We have got the New York Summit coming up on July 10th over in Gigi's neck of the woods.
And Robbie's. We're both
And Robbie's. There we go. You
same
guys,
city, different locations currently.
there we go. I think both of you guys will be there, though, right?
For sure.
So
I love New York City Summit.
Absolutely.
there's going to be a lot of cool things being announced. We've got a lot of cool demos planned, an entire day of streaming with some really cool things lined up. So come by. The booth will be on the main expo floor. Say hi to Robbie and Gigi, myself and the other producers. You can feel free to try to jump behind, get in front of our camera, try to, photo bomb us, or I guess that'd be like video bombing us. But, have some fun. Come say hi to us at the booth, get your questions answered, and register at that link that our other producer, Debbie, just dropped in the chat.
And super shameless plug, obviously going to be a big focus on generative AI at the New York City Summit. But if you're asking, how would you run generative AI across AWS's hybrid and edge services, all these different edge locations for data sovereignty or security, I've got you covered. I won't just be in the studio. I'll be out in a builder session. You're looking at HYB 302 among the many other breakout sessions, builder sessions, workshops, and of course the keynote by Dr. Matt Wood. No shortage of fun.
Shameless plug is maybe not the way to start that phrase, but I love that for you, and I can't wait to heckle you during your session. That's so exciting. I'll be on the AWS OnAir desk, hanging out all day. Like Nick said, come say hi, come photobomb us, come hang out behind me while I'm live streaming. And we have so many cool demos coming. I was just getting the list sent to me the other day, and it's going to be really, really fun, action-packed day. Can you confirm for me, Nick, is it free to attend New York City Summit? I think it is.
Oh, I think so. I'm checking with our other
Anybody
producer.
Anybody can sign up. It's complimentary.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. there we go. It is free. I always get very concerned.
It's
I'm
the only free thing in all of New York.
There we go.
Come hang out. Everyone says you walk out your door and you spend money.
If you name drop Gigi, Robbie, and myself specifically, it's free. Otherwise, maybe not. Let's give ourselves some street cred there.
Okay. All right. Well, that's one way to do it. It is free for everyone else too, though. So come by whether or not you were planning on it, because you can just sign up on the links they put in the chat and come hang out with us. It's going to be such a good day.
Absolutely. It's going to be awesome. Well, that was my little plug. So I am going to recede back to the basement and read everybody's surveys, go off camera before I break everybody's screens from being on it too much, let you guys do the outro, but I'm going to go nibble on some sponge cake, strumming my stick string on my front porch swing, all that fun stuff.
All right.
Later.
Bye, Nick.
Get out of here. That was such a fun show. We learned about MLflow integrating seamlessly with a managed backend for Amazon SageMaker. What else did we learn?
We also learned about how you can containerize and run large language models on Amazon EC2 instances with Nvidia NIM. Thank you to our sponsor. Really just a clear theme of AI and ML across the board, getting us super hyped for the AWS Summit in New York City. For all of us in the Northeast or East Coast, Javits Center, right in the Hudson Yards area, west side of Manhattan.
You're saying a lot of New York City words that are all completely different things, but I appreciate the energy. But it will be on the west side, generally speaking, narrow it down to the Javits Center. And a bunch of sponsors are going to have booths there. We're going to have a bunch of builder sessions. I know my product has a builder session for EUC. Your products have builder sessions. One of them you're leading. And like you said, Matt Wood's leading the keynote. And it's just going to be a great day in hopefully not 95-degree heat.
I hope so. You know, we can take the weekend off, relax, and come Monday, we're back prepping for the New York City Summit and a whole other week's lineup of AWS OnAir.
Yep. Well, on that note, I think thanks for hosting with me, Robbie. This was a great hour spent.
Well said. And thank you to our audience for joining. We hope to see you next time. And then until next time, keep on building, and thanks for joining us.